Welcome to Virtual Wednesdays. My name is Francesca D'Alessio, and I'm so glad you could join us. Tonight we welcome artist, historian, and storyteller Ben Wood. Ben will present his work on the rediscovery and new information on the history of the Mission Dolores mural. Mission San Francisco de Asis is the oldest surviving structure in San Francisco. Hidden behind the great altar in the old Mission Church is a mural painted by Ohlone artists in 1791. Before we begin, this presentation offers an opportunity to share the museum's land acknowledgement that recognizes and pays respect to the indigenous people of the land where our two museums, the De Young and the Legion of Honor, are so impressively situated in Golden Gate Park and Lincoln Park in San Francisco. We present this acknowledgement to raise awareness of the enduring relationship of the Ohlone community to its land in the Bay Area, and to underline our role as a museum that fosters inclusivity among the communities that we serve. After the land acknowledgement, please give a warm welcome to Ben Wood.
Thank you, Fran. I'm so delighted to be able to share the history of the Mission Dolores mural with the De Young community on your Wednesday virtual Zoom call or Zoom presentation. It's quite significant. This right now is significant because, for two reasons. One, that October 9th marks the date of the founding of Mission Dolores 245 years ago. And also this year, in August, marked the 230th anniversary of the painting of the Mission Dolores mural. So as a longtime advocate of the Mission Dolores mural and its story, I've personally been striving to share the history of the mural. And I reached out to you, to the De Young earlier in the year, or maybe even last year. And I'm hoping to, at some point, again, find a venue to have the Mission Dolores mural recreated again as a street mural. Between 2011 and 2016, it existed as a street mural on Bartlett Street in San Francisco. And I'm hoping again that we can find a space somewhere in San Francisco to have it again available to the public. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the history of the Mission Dolores mural, the Painted Adobe Reredos at Mission Dolores. Ever since my involvement with this mural, with this project, I felt it my artistic responsibility to share the artwork with the public. As one who has had a vital role in making it once again accessible, I feel responsible to ensure that it remains available so that the public may learn about it, its history, significance, and contemporary relevance to both indigenous and present-day communities. Within the short space and time of this venue, I'm going to present the story of my rediscovery of the mural, share the story of its origins and of the indigenous people who may have painted it, and the story of those who originally discovered it in 1903 and sought to preserve the mission and the mural into the present day. So behind the wooden altar screen, or reredos in the sanctuary at Mission Dolores, is a wall that was painted in the late 18th century. It was painted directly onto whitewashed plaster, and it's adorned with abstract decorative patterns as well as Christian imagery, and it remains largely underinterpreted and uninterpreted by scholars. The Painted Adobe Reredos, it's the oldest known painting on a human-made wall in California. It was designed by the Franciscan missionaries in and painted by native artists in 1791. Besides being an engaging piece of art, the mural stands as an intriguing artistic production from a remote past. So here's a picture of the Reredos today, behind which the mural is situated on a wall. This is a quote from Charles Warren Stoddard. The high altar is, of course, in striking contrast with all that dark interior. Do you wonder at this? When you enter the old church at Mission Dolores, you should recall its history and picture in your imagination the people for whom the mission was established. That's from Charles Warren Stoddard in The Footprints of the Padres. So in 2008, late 2003 and early 2004, I came onto the Mission Dolores scene. I was fresh out of the San Francisco Art Institute. I was age 23 and I was interested in learning more about Ohlone heritage, Ohlone history, and Mission Dolores. I'd read the book The Ohlone Way by Malcolm Margolin. And as the oldest building in San Francisco, it was a remnant of that history, the site of the colonial past, the site of the genocide, and a building that forever changed the traditional lifeways of the indigenous communities that built and sustained the mission. This is Eric Blind, who I work with, an archaeologist, and myself going into the church attic of the church. This is the two of us standing above the altar in the attic. My enduring interest with the mission began when I worked with the curator Guy Cleary, and the incoming who was leaving, and the incoming curator Andrew Galvan, who's the present-day curator at Mission Dolores still to this day. I worked on a voluntary project and was given permission to photograph this mural. I enlisted the help of Eric, who is an archaeologist working locally, and we concocted a rope and pulley system to photograph the top of the mural, the 5 by 22 foot area, picture by picture, one shot at a time. The project took off from here. I'm going to share the video that was available at the time. This was presented on KQED.
For more than 2 centuries, one of San Francisco's most important artistic legacies has been hidden from public view behind this Baroque wooden altar inside Mission Dolores. A vast mural painted directly onto the bare surface of the wall that experts believe may be an important artistic collaboration between Franciscan priests and the Ohlone Indians, who were native to the area. For the past year, archaeologist Eric Blind and artist Ben Wood have been working with curator Andrew Galvan to create the first complete documentation of this hidden landmark.
Finding out about this mural, I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to actually take part in actually documenting something so important for San Francisco, perhaps for San Francisco's history, perhaps for the native history of the area. And we went up there. I had no clue what I was going to get when I went up there. And then I saw that we opened the trapdoor and I saw the mural and I thought, wow, I don't know if I can actually do this.
With just 18 inches of clearance in front of the mural and no ambient lighting, the task of photographing the mural has been daunting, forcing the team to experiment with a variety of techniques before coming up with this unlikely combination of digital and shoestring technology.
I believe that it was photographed before, but within the process of using the digital camera, we've been able to instantly generate an image onto the computer.
Each digital image records a section of the mural just a few inches wide, and one of the team's biggest challenges was to devise the pulley system that would enable them to maneuver the camera inch by inch across the full 22-foot expanse of the mural.
So basically what I did here is I've just put them out in layers.
I think it'd be good if we printed them all out.
After hundreds of images were collected, Ben and Eric faced an equally laborious process piecing them together.
This is the middle. So this is a sacred heart with a sword. I don't know if they're going to make it.
The picture of the mural that emerged over many months' time
That's pretty
was
good.
dominated by two sacred hearts, suggesting the influence of the Spanish priests, surrounded by a decorative motif that may be Indian in origin, evidence that this may indeed be one of the earliest and most important such collaborations.
It's one of a kind. It's probably only of a kind. It's the finest example, the best example. It's related to the history of the missions. It's related to the history of the Indian people, to the history of San Francisco. It's a wowie that no other mission has.
In the long term, Ben and Eric hope to work with Mission Dolores to create a digitally restored version of the mural that could be projected or even painted anew in the museum adjacent to the chapel, giving the public a glimpse at this long-lost piece of San Francisco history.
So we labored for weeks in the tiny crawl space above the altar of the church to document photographically and later compile digitally a mural from the late 18th century. Our project cost about $200 in materials, and that was the cost to purchase this rope that you see, and to create the custom camera mount, where I was walking around to different hardware stores begging them to help me with this art project and trying to explain it to them. They were looking at me very puzzled. What, a mural behind an altar? You know, what are you talking about? Ours was the first systematic photography effort to record the mural. So prior to our photography, the total condition of the mural wasn't clear. This is what you see as you look through the trapdoor. As you can see, certain areas of the mural have deteriorated over time, particularly a section at the top of the mural, perhaps inadvertently abraded or worn down when an electrical cable was installed in front of the mural, and you'll see that in a moment. Here's an example of some of the first photographs that we captured when lowering the camera to the central niche. I then composited these together into a giant image in Photoshop. So, you know, I was using my experiences and my skills as a graphic art maker, you know, with images, and so nowadays it's a remedial, looks kind of back, you know, basic, but because there's so many new tools in which you can do this. But basically, I composited the images all together, and this gives you an example of the progression of my stitch composite at the top of the mural. So you'll see the progression as I stitch it together. There's that that cable that I was talking about, potentially, that area of the mural was taken off the wall. You see there's no paint on that area of the mural. So this represents the top 5 by 22 feet of the mural. And here, the original, so our project culminated in a projection onto the dome of the basilica of 2 of the Sacred Hearts, making portions of the mural visible to the public for the first time in 200 years, which also coincided with the installation of Andrew Galvan, a Chochenyo Ohlone, man of Chochenyo Ohlone heritage and with ties to Mission Dolores itself, as the incoming curator and custodian of the old mission.
There's a new curator at Mission Dolores in San Francisco. He's a descendant of the Native Americans who helped build the mission. His appointment comes at the same time a mural painted by Indian artists has been unveiled to the public. The two events are shedding light on the role of Native Americans in mission history. Erica Kelly has the story.
To make the ancient mural more accessible, Ben Wood and an archaeologist harnessed modern technology. Using a digital camera rigged to a pulley system, they began photographing the mural. So far, they've taken 300 photos and captured a 5 by 22-foot segment of the mural. They projected a montage of the images onto the dome of the basilica next door. It depicts 2 hearts believed to belong to Jesus and his mother Mary.
So the result was that was that the mural was projected in the church, in the basilica itself, and resulted in widespread coverage by the news media, including national news media, and hundreds came to see the projected mural in person. Early recognition of the project from Senator Barbara Boxer, who projected images in the United States Senate to support her legislation on the California Missions Preservation Act. And we also received an award of historic preservation from the governor of California at the time. I've since strived to earn this recognition by attempting to preserve this important artistic legacy, historic legacy of the native Californians. This is Bartlett Street. And in 2011, in an effort to re-engage the public awareness of the mural, it had sort of faded from public awareness by that time. That's only 7 years later. And to make it more accessible in a more permanent and public space, I spearheaded the public recreation of a mural on Bartlett Street, a few blocks away in the Mission district of San Francisco. It was my goal by making the mural available to gain community support to help share its story, so that the church might get support in their own efforts to preserve this unique artifact. And I'm going to show you a video. So there's the mural in the process of being recreated. And here's a mural, here's a video of that recreation of the mural.
I've been doing murals in the city and beyond for over 15 years. Because we can always come back in with the white and the red. With murals, it's really cool because you get that instant reaction.
With every stroke of his brush, artist Jet Martinez is sending the wall of a Mission District market 200 years into the past.
It really spoke to things in my childhood when I would see murals like this in some of the different missions in Mexico.
The mural he's painting is new.
But it's a stitch of like 300 pictures.
But its inspiration lives deep in San Francisco history.
This is a decorative mural that was behind the altar in the Mission Dolores church.
In fact, the mural Martinez is copying still exists. It just took some Indiana Jones-like sleuthing to bring it back to the public eye. 7 years ago, Ben Wood and archaeologist Eric Blind heard the tale of an old mural covered by the altar of Mission Dolores, San Francisco's oldest building. Using cameras and pulleys in an attic crawl space, they photographed the mural one piece at a time.
If you're above the altar, you can look below and see sort of from an oblique angle this mural, which was painted in 1791.
Using a composite of those photos, Martinez and his team are now recreating the mural, which was most likely painted by Native Americans.
Because part of the mural is no longer there, we're just recreating what's there now, and people can imagine what was there 200 years ago.
There's two hearts, so one has a sword through it, and the other is a heart pierced with 3 nails.
Soon, the mural will join the living for the first time in 2 centuries. It will become the backdrop for a weekly Mission community street market, proving that the power and beauty of art can still inspire through the passing of time. Joe Rosado Jr., NBC Bay Area News.
So that was a wonderful project with artists Bunnie Reiss, Ezra Eismont, and Jet Martinez. And it was a really great way to help make the mural more available to the public. Here is a group of Stanford humanities students visiting the recreated mural. Aside from my artistic endeavors to make the mural available as a projection art project, as you saw in 2004, and in 2011 as a street mural, I've always also had a goal of scholarship. But, you know, I kind of always expected someone else to come along, a historian, a scholar of mission history, an indigenous scholar, to help me or to do the work of interpreting and telling the history of the mural, but nobody showed up. And so I proceeded on my own. This is a photograph of Vincent Medina, who is of Chochenyo Ohlone heritage, whose ancestor was baptized at Mission Dolores in 1801. And here's some photographs of the recreated mural on Bartlett Street, portions of it. Here's a well-known rendering of Ohlone dancers in front of Mission Dolores, recorded by Luis Choris in 1816. So some of the questions that started to come to my mind as I thought about and envisioned telling the story of the mural. Well, first of all, when was the mural painted? So the creation of the mural most likely took place between the completion of the walls in 1790 and the dedication of the church. That was on August 2nd, 1791, so 230 years ago this year. The first wall painting of its kind in the San Francisco Bay Area, Norman Neuerberg, a mission historian, described the Dolores mural as the earliest surviving decoration on a human-made wall in California. It was painted on the church's focal interior wall. It was not merely decorative, but served a vital devotional function for worshippers. This is from the annual report. They're called the Informes. Sorry about my Spanish. So according to the annual report of 1796, a magnifico coratoral mayor, or a magnificent altar reredos, arrived at the mission. The altar, which was likely arrived in a disassembled fashion, came on a frigate from San Blas in Mexico. The annual report was signed by Friar José María Fernández and Martin de Landiata on December 31st, 1796, confirms that the main altar arrived that year. So the main altar, in front that sits atop the mural, represents a transitional period in earlier California missions where the Baroque style was still in vogue, and also neoclassical designs were coming into fashion in Mexico City and then being brought up to the missions in California. So for 5 years, the mural was visible from 1791 to 1796. It served as the focal point of this place of worship and as the backdrop of numerous baptisms, weddings, masses, and conversions. And you know, as we know, the Spanish mission culture soon disrupted and undermined the indigenous and specifically here the Ohlone social structures and ways of life. The missions baptized about 80,000 native Californians. By 1834, 60,000 had died, and by 1900, the number of Indians who had been associated with the missions was down to about 800 people, or 1% of the number before colonization. My renewed interest in 2014 brought up the question, how might we learn more about the artists or the artists who painted the mural? And so that led me to Jonathan Cordero, who is the chairperson and the executive director of the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone. I got to know Jonathan going down to his homeland, one of his homelands in the Santa Barbara area, Ventura, and gave a presentation at Mission Studies Conference. And he and I decided to work together to tell the story of the mural, and he would help support me in my goal to tell its story. So this is Jonathan Cordero. This was a visit that he made, was the first time that he returned to his ancestral village site in Pacifica near Maury Point, where his ancestors had once lived. So this is, some of the important, as well as being, sorry, I'm going to go back, as well as being a scholar, Jonathan is a descendant of the original people of San Francisco Peninsula, the Ramaytush Ohlone. His ancestor was Mariano Cordero, a leather jacket soldier from Baja California, who married Jonathan's female ancestor, Francisca Xavira Silate, sorry, my pronunciation, at Mission Dolores. She was from the village of Timictac in present-day Pacifica, and theirs was the first marriage at Mission Dolores between a so-called gente de razón and a neophyte. Here's a photograph of Jonathan upon the visit we made to Maury Point in Pacifica. Jonathan is the chairperson of the Association of Ramaytush Ohlone, which comprises of the only known living descendants of the native people of the San Francisco Peninsula. Since that time, Jonathan and I joined my effort on my ongoing project to make more information about the mural available, and in an attempt to work with the church and ultimately in our goal of preserving the mural. So Jonathan and I were able to create an article about the mural that was published in 2018. And this is some of Jonathan's research, which I'm sharing. What we were able to learn was that Native people, Indians, did assist the Spanish in the decoration of the missions. At the time of the painting of the mural, there were very few artisans that worked in Alta California. And so it was likely that the Mission Dolores mural was painted by Native artisans. Fascinating research that led me to Jonathan was that as a sociologist, he's done a kind of social analysis of the reconstruction of the 8 Ramaytush tribelets based on their proximity and proximity to the mission and the activity that they were, some of the activities they were carrying out that are recorded in the mission registers. He was able to determine some of the most likely candidates of the painters of the Mission Dolores mural. So I asked Jonathan, based on your research, do you think it's possible to identify the most likely candidates, the most likely painters of the Mission Dolores mural? And basically what he was able to do was identify the most likely candidates would have been Ramaytush, Ohlone, because they were one of the earlier constellations of groups that were being baptized at the missions, at the Mission Dolores. They would have likely been men. Living prior to 1790, they would have had a high status at the mission, indicated by their staff position in the mission, within the mission itself, and also of the most highly populated tribes at the mission at that time, which are the Alamu, the Aramai, the Salsan, and the Lamchin. And based on that research, Jonathan was able to determine the top 8 most likely candidates of the painters, and here they are. So here's Jonathan in front of the mural, in front of the Reredos at Mission Dolores. Sorry, I'm just a little behind. So in working on the project, Jonathan discovered that his direct ancestors were in a group of candidates of Indian artisans who most likely painted the mural behind the altar. And so in addition to having a professional interest, he has a strong personal connection with the artwork. My enduring interest in the mural was reignited in 2014 while doing some online research. I found the genealogy blog of Jana Fennell, who is the great-grandniece of Nora, who wrote an article about Nora Fennell's association with restoring the sanctuary of Mission Dolores. This is Nora Fennell. She's standing in front of the of Mission Dolores pre-1906. I came across this picture of a woman standing in front of the mission, and I was intrigued. This was taken by her brother at the turn of the 20th century. I'd known about Charles, her brother, since my own involvement with the mural back in 2003, by way of this article, this Examiner article of 1918, which said Indian fresco uncovered at Old Mission. I was in fact going by the mistaken belief that Charles had discovered the mural, but in fact Nora had helped discover it in 1903, 100 years before I came along. In 1918, Charles, her brother, had while watching workmen engaged in doing restoration, retrofit of the building next door and the Old Mission, he saw streaks of color coming from off the interior walls, and he mounted a ladder and dug into the whitewashed paint with his pocket knife to expose this geometric design. It's very faint, but you see a geometric design along the side of the exterior of the side of the mission. This, which had once been an interior room, it was called part of a sacristy, which was on the north side of the church, which was removed during the 1860s, and it was now on an exposed exterior wall. I became acquainted with the descendants of the Fennell family. I got to know the descendants, the present-day descendants. Charles's grandson, Jerry, to this day lives on a house he built on Hoffman Avenue. His grandfather had built on Hoffman Avenue, about 7 minutes walk from where I live and where I'm giving this presentation. Here are some of the photographs from their glass plate collection from the attic darkroom of Charles Fennell. So I got to know the family, and I got to walk over to their house in which their grandson still lives, and got to check out the attic of Charles, the brother of Nora. And there intact is his darkroom, almost as though he just stepped out of it, with all of his photography equipment and glass plates available for me to see. This is a photograph of the Valencia's house, from the Valencia family. The Fennell family lived at the southeast corner of 16th Street, and a wooden building was next to this adobe building, which was this was a photograph taken before it was demolished. So the Fennells. So further research revealed this article, which states from 1903. And when workmen had removed the altar, they discovered a second altar built right into the adobe. Here are the niches in the wall for the same statues that adorn the front altar. And here the wall itself is decorated in graceful scrolls of red. This restoration effort with deteriorating Baroque Reredos was led by the Irish Catholic parishioners, the Fennells. It revealed a hidden mural for the first time since 1796. And here's another article, an illustration from the 1898 San Francisco call. This would have been 100 years after the mural was covered over. During this campaign, the Fennells were interested in the preservation of the altar screen. So there you see the altar screen, and this is just, to be honest with you, it's a bizarre illustration showing the native people praying in front of the altar 100 years before, but showing the altar Reredos in front of the mural in such a state of disrepair at this point that they couldn't have statues situated on it, because it would have fallen apart. So the Nora Fennell came around and wanted to help restore the altar itself. This is a photograph that was taken by our brother Charles around the time of the restoration of the altar. So for a brief moment in the summer of 1903, due in large part to a fundraising effort and the work of Nora Fennell. So Nora, what she did is she sold tiles of the roof, fragments of the roof from the mission, and painted images of the mission on it in order to fundraise to restore the interior sanctuary of Mission Dolores and the altar itself. And in so doing, in removing the altar and restoring it, the mural was discovered. For probably the first time in 107 years, the wall was completely exposed, and the mural would have been visible. I don't know how long for, but for a moment. And I've since been hoping to find a photograph of that mural, exposed mural, but haven't yet been able. But I have to go back to the collection of Charles Fennell to see if it's there somewhere. So this is Nora Fennell. She's sitting in her living room on 16th Street. This was shortly before her death in 1910. So since its discovery and long before I came along on the scene, others were intrigued by the mural. During the 1930s, the Historic American Building Survey happened and documented its measurements and recorded the upper niche. but most notably, it was the work of mission historian Dr. Norman Neuerberg, who daringly climbed behind the altar in the 1980s and to take photography. And also he made this rendering on a rope ladder. So the painting was not merely decorative. It served a vital devotional role in bringing to life the sacred narratives and rites, and as a visual aid that enhanced meaning and stirred the imagination. As the focal point and backdrop of religious ritual and ceremony, the reredos was an important tool in focusing the attention of the worshippers. The painted symbol of the Mission Dolores reredos could be considered a visual prayer that embodies the key messages of Catholicism. The heart icons that you'll see at the top were designed suitably for the mission, which was founded on the banks of the stream Dolores, Our Lady of Sorrows Creek. The Sacred Hearts played a vital role within the function of the service. In the mission period, during the Mass service, you'll see there, men generally sat on the left cross-side and in front of the heart of Jesus. And on the right birth side, women faced the Mother Mary. So the right icon depicts a red right heart pierced by a black sword to represent the Mary most sorrowful. According to the prophecy of Simeon, Mary, the mother of Jesus, is told that a sword of sorrow would pierce her heart. The left icon is a bright red heart pierced by 3 black nails, which represents the heart of Jesus crucified with 3 nails. This likely calls up not only the stigmata, but also perhaps the importance of the Holy Trinity and the power of resurrection by salvation. While containing abstract decorative motifs and Sacred Heart designs, the reredos would have likely contained other sacred objects within their upper and lower niches, as well as the vacant spaces. The upper niche at the pinnacle of the reredos would have likely contained the statue of St. Francis of Assisi, for whom the mission was named for and established. Paintings may have hung within the vacant spaces along with carved plaques or other saints above the tabernacle. And here's a painting a photograph taken by Norman Neuerberg when he ascended behind the altar in the 1980s. And it shows the lower niche, which I haven't been able to photograph up to this point, and not in a consistent way or a comprehensive way. Within the painted reredos, the most frequently used object was the tabernacle. In his 1986 drawing, you'll see there, Norman Neuerberg depicted a wooden tabernacle within the lower niche. This was brought to San Francisco from the Philippines by Friar Cambon, and it still is situated within the sanctuary at Mission Dolores, right in front of the altar. And it could have been situated within the lower niche. Its measurements are very similar to the size and scope of the niche. So looking at the motifs, the surrounding motifs are mostly floral, symbolizing the use of flowers in the form of draperies that would appear around images and paintings hung on the altarpiece. They're principally used as borders or in a repetitive scheme. When painting was complete, the scheme would have been populated with sculptures and canvas paintings to further adorn and sanctify the altar. This is one of the key interesting focal points of the mural. It's a close-up stitch of the upper niche, a stitch of the niche. It was the right is a black and white photograph taken in the 1930s, and on the left is a photograph that I stitched together in the early 2000s. The 2 central upper and lower niches would probably have held statuary or other liturgical devices, such as the tabernacle in the lower niche. It was the schemes are principally used as borders, as you can see from Neuerberg's drawing. It appears that the mural was painted by native artisans who've been trained to paint religious iconography. It was possible that the mural was created under direction of an overseer or who's known as a Maya Domo, and painted by the most devout members of the community. And here's a completed composite of the mural. As far as our research has determined, is that none of the motifs in the extensive decorations appear Indian in nature. They're original decorations painted by native artisans from colonial designs. The wall designs are based primarily on Baroque forms, which include garlands, rosettes, patterns of leaf, flowers, pomegranate, and geometric forms. It's quite possible that the Padres had all the essential instructions needed for wall painting. There was a book by Vitruvius about architecture, and that was translated into Spanish and available at the time. Also, as early as 1771, the Padres at Mission San Gabriel had a book on the subject called Pintar sin Maestro, or Painting Without a Teacher. It's certainly a good possibility that similar resources were available at the new Church of Mission Dolores. What is quite likely, though, is that the mural was created with materials commonly used by Ohlone. The Ohlone painted their bodies a bright red with a cinnabar, and also found it an important item to trade. It might be possible that this was used as a source of paint for the mural. It's also possible that the red coloring could have been obtained from crushed burned brick. But without pigment analysis, these hypotheses are indefinite. The red paint could have been made from cinnabar or from the Almaden mine south of San Jose, or more locally from the Oakland area. Long before the successful mining operations of New Almaden in the 1800s, the Ohlone used the area as a source of deep red mercury-bearing rock cinnabar. According to previous research in the 1930s by Edith Webb, a leading California conservator had speculated the blue pigment used at Mission Dolores was almost certainly a vegetable one. He says that if it had been a mineral pigment, it would have not faded away as it has entirely done in most places, but would have mixed with other colors, red and yellow, which are undoubtedly ochres. It would have fallen off but not faded out. The red and yellow paints are indeed falling off, while the blue has merely faded. An important question is whether the mural might somehow reflect any native or aesthetic symbolism. Could the abstract decorative patterns also reference the traditional culture and practices, as well as those introduced by the Franciscans? There aren't many, or there weren't many places in Spanish California where rock art imagery crossed over into the missions, or where mission imagery crossed over into the landscape. Comparing the motifs with scratched art at Mission San Miguel from roughly the same period, it appears that the native artisans had been trained to paint religious iconography executed at Mission Dolores. At San Miguel, there are examples of scratched rock art in the plaster wainscot of the choir loft above the choir loft and sanctuary. This example appears to be scratched by native people who remembered the old ways and either had not yet been taught to draw or paint in the mission style, or chose not to paint in that style. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the present day. You'll see the mural on Bartlett Street. This is a mural that existed between 2011 and 2016. Here we are in 2015. In 2015, the building on which the recreated mural was located, situated, had a fire. The mural was not harmed, but along with the remaining building, it was demolished in 2016. It serves as a cautionary lesson. This mural is a unique work of art from a seemingly remote past that must be preserved, shared, and understood within the framework of California history. Here's a photograph of the recreated mural today, a remnant of the recreated mural. This mural represents a vital artistic contribution that must be recognized and included within American history in order to strengthen knowledge and a deeper understanding of the role of Native Californians in mission history. It's the earliest surviving decoration on a human-made wall in California, and therefore is an extremely rare colonial era record that needs to be preserved. At present, both the Painted Adobe Reredos and the altar screen require significant restoration work. In 2016, we submitted a proposal to the church for conservation professionals to develop estimates for further photographic study and conservation. While this has not yet been approved, it is hoped that these precious artifacts will receive necessary conservation attention. Perhaps the most serious threat to preserving these artifacts is that many people have forgotten them. In a land of infrequent but devastating earthquakes, that concern is warranted. The example of care exemplified by Nora Fennell and so many others should be noted and modeled. These precious artifacts should be given attention as much out of the respect for the indigenous communities that built and sustained them as for future ones. And with that, I want to thank you for allowing me to share this story and my work in advocating for the mural over the past 17 years. I'm hoping at some point to find a space, another venue in San Francisco for this mural to be recreated as it deserves. And so if you're able to help me in that effort, especially in this year, this 230th year of the recreation of the original painting of the mural, please contact me through my website, which is www.benwoodstudio.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was incredibly insightful and such an important presentation for our local San Francisco history. We can't thank you enough. Please check out our website for more information about the wonderful exhibitions and upcoming events at the DeYoung and the Legion of Honor. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you next week.